everyone. It's great to meet you all, and thanks for taking your Sunday evening time to come and listen to my my webinar or my presentation. First of all, let me introduce myself for those that don't know me. I guess most of you. My name is Niv, and I am a marine biologist. I've been working for the Manta Trust since 2012. So I've spent almost a decade now studying manta rays. The Manta Trust is a UK registered charity dedicated to studying and conserving manta rays, mobile rays, and their habitats. And we have projects in about 25 countries around the world, again, studying these animals and trying to improve the conservation status of these majestic creatures that you can see just behind me. Unfortunately, at the moment, we can also only see them virtually, most of us, and yeah, we can't wait until we be able to get back in the water soon. But today I'll actually be talking to you about Manta Expedition, which is closely affiliated company that organizes citizen science expeditions to take passionate people, divers especially, but also snorkelers, to encounter these majestic animals in the best places around the world where you can get a chance to see them. So just give me a second to share my presentation with you. Right. I hope you can now see my screen. I'll take questions at the end because unfortunately I don't have two screens, so I'll have to look at the presentation while I speak to you. So as I was saying, what is Manta Expeditions? Well, we are very closely affiliated to the Manta Trust, and our goal, our mission is to raise awareness, provide education on manta rays, manta ray research, conservation through eco trips, citizen science expeditions that again we organize in a number of countries around the world, where again we take guest divers, snorkelers to dive and swim with these majestic creatures, but not just dive and swim and see these animals, but really learn about them, contribute to research, conservation, and science, and sort of get a new perspective to diving with mantas, and not only manta rays, than sort of a general traditional dive trip would provide. And again, our goal is, of course, to offer unbelievable encounters with mantas, but not just mantas, a lot of bushleaf marine species, often when mantas are occurred, and obviously they're tropical places where you can see whale sharks if you're lucky, lots of different species of sharks, turtles, and so on. And during these trips, of course, our aim is to raise awareness, teach you something about these animals and the marine environment you're visiting, as well as taking the opportunity to collect data for our research. And this is sort of what makes Manta Expedition special. Again, is this new approach to diving. It's not just, as I like to say, it's not just a passive diving. You as a diver, you're often taken underwater to see sharks or coral reefs or amazing underwater environments and marine life without really understanding what you're seeing, and that's sort of your diving ends once you get out of the water. And you've seen amazing things, but you haven't really appreciated what you've seen. We take a different approach where we try to really sort of give you a new perspective to what you're experiencing underwater by enriching your experience with knowledge. So understanding behaviors, why you're seeing a certain species where it is, why you're seeing the mantas swimming in a certain way, and that really, in my opinion, enhances the diving experience that you have. But what is also really special about this expedition is not only that you will learn, but you are actually actively contributing to research. So we take the opportunity during these expeditions to collect data, and we invite divers that take part on these trips to help collecting crucial data that will really help Manta Trust research, as well as improving conservation for these animals. One simple way is through photo identification. So the Manta Trust has over a 20 years long data set on photo IDs of manta rays, with over 100,000 photographs of the spot pattern on the belly of these animals, which allow us to identify them. And you can take part in that. On these trips, we'll teach you how to best take photo identification, how to interpret what you've taken the photo of and how to help analyzing the images. So you're actively helping our research and conservation. You're learning a lot, and you're supporting conservation by collecting data, by sort of fundraising these expeditions, and also part of what you're of what you paid for this trip is donated to the Manta Trust in support of our research and conservation projects. And this is sort of something quite special and unique. And I think it's really important as divers, we really need to give back something to the ocean. We are taking a lot of advantage from the sea. The sea is giving us a lot, but we need to give something back. And this is a way that you can do it. And if you're a manta lover, then a manta expedition is certainly something you will really enjoy. On every manta expedition, there will be a Manta Trust researcher on board throughout the whole trip. Most of our expeditions are liveaboard-based, although we now have a few land-based. And on all of them, you will have a presence of 24/7 presence of a Manta Trust researcher, which, of course, role will be to sort of lead these trips in terms of deciding where to go, what are the best chances of seeing mantas, imparting knowledge, so through daily presentations and workshops, short, so half an hour, 45 minutes. Don't worry, you're not going back to school. But again, the knowledge that that the expert will impart during these trips will really enhance your experience, and you're obviously not obliged to follow these presentations. But the expert also, we selected normally as the expert that has the highest knowledge of the region where the trip takes place. So the Manta Trust researcher on board has extensive experience of the manta population that you're going to visit, will know very well the region, so will really know how to sort of guide those trips and lead them in a way to make them really successful. And of course, we'll have extensive scientific knowledge on mantas, their behavior, the conservation and research and conservation work that the Manta Trust does. So it's a unique opportunity to get in contact with a scientist, with an expert, something that on pretty much all dive trips you won't have the chance to. Also, our expedition, now talking about liveaboard ones, have generally a very flexible itinerary, and we try to keep it flexible in order to really maximize the chances for you to have unbelievable and unforgettable encounters with these majestic creatures. Being on a liveaboard really allows us to modify and change the itinerary as we go along based on sightings, on information that we gain through our extensive network of researchers in the regions where our expeditions take place. And so we really try to keep the itinerary as flexible as possible to go where the mantas are. And again, this is something that most liveaboards won't offer, sort of have this very fixed itinerary that you can change. Well, this is exactly what we don't try to do on our expeditions. And it's been quite successful so far. But on a typical expeditions day, well, it's if you've been on a liveaboard, you know what sort of diving on a liveaboard is. So you do sort of 2 to 4 dives or snorkels per day because, well, we're talking mantas. So most of the time, the dive sites we visit are also suitable for snorkelers. So you don't have to put scuba gear to get in. And we have often snorkelers joining our expeditions. You will normally have an evening presentation. Normally we like to do that with a beer in our hands. So after the third dive, sort of happy hour time will be a short presentation, very convivial and interactive, where we'll speak about what we've seen during the day, or you will learn about everything related to the marine environment. Of course, you will have some leisure time, and for those who are interested and really want to even give something more, then we'll have dedicated slots to data analysis, photographs that we've collected during the trip. We'll put them all together, and you'll be able to actively help going through them, analyze them, identify the animals that we've seen, looking for signs of injuries, identify the gender of the mantas we've seen, and so on. So all really important work that needs to be done on the photograph, on the data collected. The general life on a liveaboard, again, for those who've been on a liveaboard know what I'm talking about, but spending basically your life at sea for a week, 2 weeks, which it's sort of on a confined space. But what is great is that, again, these allow us flexibility being on a boat, allow us to visit the best spots in a country rather than being sort of confined around the island, if you're based on a resort, for example. Being in the ocean, you get amazing starry nights. You're sharing that week or 10 days or 2 weeks of your vacation with like-minded people that are just as passionate about the ocean, and in this case of mantas, as you are. So you're surrounded by a great community. You're having a lot of fun, sharing unforgettable moments with people that will most likely become friends. So where do we organize our expeditions? We have a growing number of destinations, starting from the Maldives, where it's actually the Manta Trust sort of started over almost 20 years ago now. Well, it was 2011 when the Manta Trust was registered as a charity, but research on manta rays in the Maldives by Manta Trust was already taking place since the early 2000s. And that's sort of where also the largest population of manta rays, or reef manta rays in the world is. We have about 5,000 identified mantas living in the Maldives, making it the best place in the world to see these animals. And that's why we organize most of our trips there. We offer a different number of itineraries in the Maldives, from the sort of the central north itinerary, which includes the now famous Honey Faro Bay, located in Ba Atoll, which is right up here. And it's very well known for its unique aggregations of mantas during the southwest monsoon. So between the months of June to November, we have the chance on occasion to see aggregations of up to 250 mantas. I've been lucky myself to have been there. The data we reported the highest number of individuals ever registered in Honey Faro. We identified 247 mantas in one day, which was something. It's probably a number an average diver won't see in a whole lifetime. Well, you get the chance to see that sometimes all together in a confined area. So we organize those trips generally, again, between June and November, was the best time to see mantas up in the north of the Maldives. And if you speak to general travel agency, they might not recommend diving in the Maldives during those months. But believe me, if you're there to see the big animals, and mantas especially, then that's the best time of the year. The weather might not be as predictable as during the other months, but on the other hand, you have these amazing, amazing aggregations of mantas in the north. But not just mantas, again. On these trips, we're not diving only manta sites. We're diving amazing other dive spots, with wrecks, the channels. You'll be able to see sharks, and whatever the country has to offer. And the Maldives does have a lot to offer. Another itinerary we really like to do, it's the very far north, where very few operators actually go, but it's really interesting from a manta point of view because there's very little data coming from those northern atolls, although we know that there's a lot of mantas up there, and we have a need to gather more data on the manta population that inhabits those northern atolls and learn about the migrations that these animals do. So we try to do some trips, offer trips up in the north. I really like the north. It's lots and lots of clouds of amazing fishes. To me, the best soft coral dives probably in the world is located somewhere there in the north of the Maldives. So again, a great variety of dive sites. And then the south of the Maldives, which is very, very different from the north, being sort of more pelagic oriented, especially one particular atoll, which is actually an island, the island of Formula, which we probably many divers now know because of guaranteed tiger shark encounters that became popular in the last couple of years. But what is really interesting for us in the south, and that island in particular, is the presence of a large population of oceanic mantas, of which still very little is known. So we organize trips specifically down there to go and study the oceanic manta populations that inhabit that southern part of the Maldives. But of course, in the south, on liveaboard especially, you have a chance to see a lot of different organisms, not just giant oceanic mantas, but night-feeding whale sharks, which is something absolutely stunning. Tiger sharks again, walls of gray reef sharks in the channel, lots of eagle rays, turtles, and so on. So again, the Maldives is a fantastic destination. And here are just a few images that speak louder than words, of course, of a trip in the south of the Maldives. Again, the southern trip in the Maldives will also offer you the opportunity to see both species of mantas, reef mantas, as well as oceanic mantas, which is something you won't you won't get the chance to experience very often. And the trips that we organize in the south of the Maldives are actually organized during the other season, what is called the Northeast Monsoon, so months that go between February to April, May, when then the season starts to change again. And that's because we have the right conditions, and especially oceanic mantas seem to aggregate around Formula, this very special island, between the months of March and April. And then they sort of disappear for the rest of the year, making it really interesting to study and understanding where are these giants going. And it's even more important if you consider that there is a very important fishery for these animals just in the north of the Maldives, well, not in the Maldives, but in Sri Lanka, which is located a few hundred kilometers away from the country. So these oceanic mantas, when they disappear from Formula, might actually enter areas where they are targeted from Sri Lankan fishermen. So understanding, first of all, how big the population is and where are these animals going is really, really crucial to ensuring that the long-term survival of this population of oceanic mantas. So here again, it's a site in the center of the center south of the Maldives, which we often visit when we do south trips that start from Male, where again you'll have a chance to see reef mantas and not just oceanics. I don't know what happened, but the video stopped. So I'll move on to the next destination, which is Mexico, and one particular region in Mexico, or an archipelago called Revillagigedo, better known as Socorro because it's easier to pronounce. But it's located in the Pacific coast of Mexico, about a day of navigation from Cabo San Lucas, from Baja California, right there. And it's an archipelago, a volcanic archipelago composed of 5 islands, basically in the middle of nowhere, so attracting big pelagic, including our favorite giant oceanic mantas. And Socorro is probably the best place in the world to see giant oceanic mantas. I think it's almost impossible to go on a trip there without seeing a handful of oceanic mantas. And it's quite typical to see 5 to half a dozen to a dozen individuals on a dive site, which, when we're talking oceanic mantas, is really impressive numbers. These animals grow pretty much twice as big as reef mantas, so with a wingspan of up to 7 meters. So really the giants of our oceans after the whale shark. But what is really interesting there, again, it's a population of oceanic mantas, quite big, but of which still fairly little is known about. Where are they moving to? Where are they going? How often do they return to these sites? What are they actually doing at these sites? They do tend to spend some time cleaning, but feeding is something that is very rarely observed. So we really need to understand more about why are these animals there, and thus how can we better ensure that they are properly protected. But Socorro, besides offering being the best place to see oceanic mantas, also offers amazing encounters with other pelagics, including bottlenose dolphins. And I've personally had an amazing dive, a 60 minutes dive with a dozen oceanic mantas and dozen bottlenose dolphins playing with us, fighting with each other to gain our attention. The dolphin swam in front of the manta in front of the dolphin, and so on for a whole 60-65 minutes. Obviously, huge yellowfin tunas. If you're lucky, even schools of hammerheads, but hammerhead sharks are relatively common to be seen here. Galapagos shark, even tiger sharks, really pelagic organisms. We're again in the middle of the Pacific Oceans, basically seamounts, and so attracting large pelagic organisms. But what we're there for is especially oceanic mantas, of course. I think there's a short footage of an expedition to Socorro or Revillagigedo. If you do travel there and you speak to locals, make sure to say Revillagigedo. Try to pronounce it correctly, because they're quite picky about the name of their archipelago, especially since Socorro is actually one of the 5 islands. The archipelago itself, again, is called Revillagigedo. So it's a full day of navigation from Baja California, and then you reach this desolated islands, beautiful volcanic islands, very new, they only recently formed, which host an incredible richness underwater, especially again attracting lots of big pelagics, such as again hammerheads, oceanic mantas, whale sharks as well, and they're also quite known for sightings of humpback whales, especially towards the months of between the months of January to April. You have really good chances of seeing humpback whales, at least while navigating between a side and another. And if you're really lucky, then hearing them underwater, which will certainly give you shivers as you're diving. As I'm a little bit short on time, I'm going to skip the videos. You can see plenty of them on YouTube anyway, and all our videos also are on the Manta Expedition YouTube channel. Indonesia is certainly another fabulous destination if you're into mantas, and we do organize trips in 2 different regions in Indonesia, Raja Ampat as well as Komodo. Raja Ampat, well, obviously in the Coral Triangle, also the richest diversity of underwater marine life that you can see anywhere else in the world, and of course also a great paradise for mantas. One of the very, very few places in the world where you can actually see both species of mantas, not only within the same tree, but if you're really lucky, you can even see reef and oceanic mantas within the same dive site. There is one particular dive site where both species can occur together, which will make for some really spectacular encounters. But there's a number of sites where mantas aggregate to feed, to clean. You might see lots of also schools of mobular rays, different species of mobular rays, which are sort of smaller species of smaller versions of mantas. They're different species, but they do belong to the same family. But yeah, Raja Ampat is certainly well known for its diversity, and again, richest in mantas. And then Komodo, second biggest population of reef mantas in the world. So again, a great place to go and experience reef mantas with, of course, the amazing diversity that, again, also Komodo has to offer, big and small. So you'll go from seeing big reef mantas to seeing tiny pygmy seahorses and other critter life. So you get a really great variety on your dives. And on a trip I led in Komodo a few years ago, just within a week, we've identified over 110 mantas. So again, a great destination to see those animals. And then sort of more exploratory regions that we've recently started to organize some trips toward Thailand and Myanmar. They're really important because, well, Thailand only recently established protection for this for manta rays. Manta rays were fished in this region until not long ago. So it's really important to see how the population is doing, and promoting manta tourism is also a great way to ensure that the protection remains such and is valued in the country. Thailand and Myanmar both host population of oceanic mantas, so you will see really giant ones. And Myanmar in particular is really interesting because it's only recently opened its door to tourism and marine tourism. And very, very little, virtually nothing is known about the manta population that visits these waters and where they're coming from, if they are the same individuals that visit Thailand, that are found in Thailand or not. So these are really important information to then be able to determine what are the best conservation measures to put in place to protect these creatures. So Thailand, our trips are focused on the Similan Islands, where the famous Hing Mang and Hing, I can never pronounce the name of these 2 dive sites, Hing Mang and Hing Dang, I think. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing them right, but anyway, they are very well known for hosting, for being cleaning stations for oceanic mantas. So this is where we do spend quite a bit of time on an expedition. And then Myanmar is especially Black Rock, which is the dive site where manta rays have been spotted so far, but Myanmar being again quite unexplored is really interesting because we take also the opportunity on these trips to explore new dive sites and possibly find new manta aggregation sites. And finally, we have special expeditions, but they have something in particular, starting from our Manta Passion, which has been running for 4 years. Unfortunately, this year could not run for obvious reasons, but the 5th edition of the Manta Passion will take place next year, and it's I will say, a Manta, as the name says, for Manta passionists, for Manta obsession divers and snorkelers. On this trip, we really try to do pretty much 100% dives with mantas. We do go much more in depth in terms of data collection. We try to do exploratory dives to find new aggregation sites, new feeding stations, new feeding grounds. We do long-time surveys to collect long-term data on cleaning stations, for example, and we really try to come out with as much data, as much information as possible on these trips. And again, it's just amazingly great fun. People that are, again, Manta lovers, and we just share the same love, the same passion. So it's just a great trip. And on the Manta Passion, we've never seen less than 120 mantas. I think that's the least we've seen, and we've broken every year. We just go better and better. I don't know how, but last year we've estimated seeing more than 250 mantas, and we've identified more than 180. And that was just in about 10 days. Next year, we have a 2-week trip going to the very north, going to explore new dive sites. So we're really trying to focus next year's Manta Passion on finding new manta aggregation sites in the north of the country. And then the Giants of Formula, which is a trip in the very south of the country. Again, Formula, that island I talked to you about before. Again, heavily manta focused, where we take the opportunity to collect as much data as possible on the oceanic mantas that visit that site. As I said, it's a fairly recently, newly discovered population of mantas, so we are eager to learn as much as possible about the giants that inhabit the south of the country. And those are actually land-based, so you'll be based on the island of Formula, which is a local island, and take daily trips to go out. So even if you are not strong on vessels, then that's a great option. Further opportunity to get involved, we organize also group charters. If you're a group and you're interested to do a trip specifically saying mantas, but not only, but especially with the Manta scientist aboard, we can help organize that. We do work with companies that have corporate responsibility section, where we do organize sort of fundraising trips and expeditions where the employees dedicate their time to help collecting and analyzing data on these trips. So if you do work for a company that have that section, do get in touch, and they're great opportunities for us and for you. And we also done a lot of trips with students of different ages, so one day or a week, learning about mantas, getting involved, getting sort of hands-on experience on marine conservation. To learn and understand more about what we do, of course, Manta Trust is your best spot to learn about mantas, biology, research, conservation, and what the charity has done, and keeps doing to preserving these animals. If you're interested about the expeditions, we have a dedicated website, which is mantaexpeditions.com. You can follow us on social media, sign up to our newsletter, and you receive sort of a monthly update about the activities that we organize. We have a number of future plans. I'm sort of short on time now, so I think I'll stop it here. And I don't know if I can open questions for a couple of minutes. I haven't really followed the chat to see what's been going on there. Let me just quickly have a look at the chat. I think there's no, age minimum is 21. I think age minimum 21 is the volunteering, Manta Trust volunteering, which is different. On expeditions, there's no minimum age. I mean, I guess if you're 15, you should probably come with your parents. But we've had children, obviously, with their parents coming along. On our expeditions, there's no minimum age. 21 years old is the minimum required age for the Manta Trust volunteering programs. Is there a maximum age, you're asking? For volunteering positions with the Manta Trust, I don't think there's an official maximum age. They are volunteering placements which do require some fitness, spending a lot of time, long hours in the water at sea. So we sort of tend to favor younger, especially younger biologists or wannabe biologists or students, especially to help them getting their feet in marine science and conservation. Yeah. All dive experiences. It depends on the trip, of course. Certain trips might require sort of South Maldives trips or coral trips require at least an advanced or equivalent, but most other trips are open to all diver levels, as I said, and as I said before, also snorkelers. So if anyone has any question or want to chat a little bit more, I'll be a few minutes in the Manta Trust booth, so you can come and chat with me there. And otherwise, again, follow us on social media. Thank you very much, everyone. Sorry, I went over a few minutes. And yeah, I hope to see you soon on one of our trips underwater, and especially with our beloved mantas.